I was at Bayside Marketplace, a bustling hub that's always alive with energy, but that night, something happened. Something so bizarre, so inexplicable, that the authorities had no choice but to sweep it under the rug, blaming it on rowdy teens stirring up trouble. If only it were that simple. It's taken me a long time to muster the courage to talk about this, but I can't keep it bottled up anymore. Let me start by saying I'm just an ordinary guy, a construction worker from Miami. I don't have kids of my own, but I've got a little sister named Emily. She's the pride of the family, a straight-A student with her sights set on a top university. She's everything I wasn't growing up. While I spent my teen years making bad choices and hanging with the wrong crowd, Emily buried herself in books and aced every test. She's the kind of kid who deserves the world, and before she heads off to college, I wanted to show her how proud I am. That evening, fresh off a long shift, I decided to buy her something special, a handbag she'd been eyeing. I figured a designer purse would be the perfect gift, something she could carry into her bright future. Little did I know, that trip to the mall would turn my world upside down. The parking lot was packed, as usual. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the sea of cars. I parked my old truck and made my way inside, still wearing my work uniform, my name stitched right above the chest pocket. The place was buzzing with energy, shoppers milling about, kids running past, and families laughing as they celebrated the start of a new year. I'm not much for crowds or shopping, so my plan was simple: grab the bag and get out. I headed straight for the store, scanning the displays of glittering, high-end purses. The prices were outrageous. Some even hit 5 figures. I chuckled to myself. Emily was brilliant, sure, but I wasn't about to shell out a fortune for a bag. Eventually, I found one that seemed just right, white leather with a well-known designer's name stitched elegantly across it. It was classy but not over the top, perfect for a smart, young woman like her. As I brought it to the counter, the clerk, a polished woman with an air of superiority, gave me a look that said she wasn't thrilled to be serving a guy in a dusty work uniform. I didn't care. My sister deserved this. She bagged up the purse and handed it over, her expression barely masking her discomfort. I took it and turned to leave, ready to call it a day. That's when the chaos started. At first, it was just a commotion, shouts echoing from deeper in the mall. Then came the flood of people. Crowds ran past me in a panic, their faces pale with terror. Some clutched their children, others shoved their way through the chaos, desperate to escape. I froze for a moment, unsure of what was happening. Curiosity, or maybe something stupider, got the better of me, and I moved toward the noise. That's when I saw them. Towering figures emerged from the shadows, their forms barely human. They moved with a slinking, unnatural grace, like predators stalking prey. There were 5 of them, each standing at least 12 feet tall. Their bodies seemed to absorb the light around them, like they were made of pure shadow. It felt like something ripped straight out of a sci-fi nightmare. The air grew heavy, charged with an electric dread. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't look away. My pulse hammered in my ears as I stood there, clutching that purse like it was the last normal thing left in the world. The primal instinct to run surged through me. I dropped the purse, the one I'd picked out so carefully for my sister, like it was nothing more than trash. All that mattered was survival. I turned and bolted, joining the panicked crowd fleeing for their lives. But before I could blend into the sea of terrified faces, a shadow loomed over me, darkening everything around me. I froze. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to move, but I couldn't. Towering above me was one of the creatures, its body rippling like smoke trapped in an invisible glass. Its glowing purple eyes, orbs of unnatural energy, locked onto mine. In that moment, it felt as if time had slowed to a crawl. I wasn't sure if I was still breathing, or if my heart had simply stopped. Then it happened. My feet left the ground, and I began to rise, weightless and powerless. The thing didn't touch me, not physically, but its presence alone seemed to lift me into the air. It pulled me closer until I was eye to eye with it. The haze surrounding its body, that inky, swirling substance, began seeping into my mouth and nose. I choked and gagged, convinced I was about to suffocate. But I didn't. I could still breathe, but that was the least of my worries. In my mind, something far worse was happening. It was as if my entire life had been unraveled and laid bare before me. Memories flooded my mind in rapid succession, playing like an old movie reel. Every moment, my childhood mischief, my rebellious teen years, the mistakes I'd buried, the triumphs I held dear, everything was exposed. I wasn't the only one watching. I realized with growing dread that the creature was seeing it all, too. It was digging into my soul, peeling back every layer of my mind, and absorbing everything. My thoughts weren't my own anymore. They were shared with this thing. My deepest fears, my most vulnerable moments, it saw everything. It felt like an eternity before it finally stopped. Without a word or sound, the creature gently lowered me to the ground. My legs felt like jelly as I collapsed, gasping for air. It didn't even glance back as it slinked away, its towering form dissolving into the shadows. I watched in horrified awe as it joined the others, the group of monstrous beings stalking them all. And just like that, they were gone. The silence was deafening. For a moment, I sat there, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Then the fear snapped me out of my stupor, and I ran. I sprinted out of the mall as fast as my legs could carry me, my chest heaving with every breath. Outside, the streets were swarmed with flashing lights and sirens. Cop cars lined the roads in a show of force that would have seemed comforting in any other situation. But I wasn't comforted. I was terrified. Surely, they were preparing for a fight. Surely, they had seen what I saw, and this was their attempt to stand against it. But when I approached the officers, desperate to explain what had happened, I was met with skepticism and indifference. "Just some teens starting a riot," one of them said dismissively, not even meeting my eyes. Teens? Riot? Fireworks? None of it made sense. There had been no fireworks, no rowdy kids. Only those things. And yet, over the next few days, the media clung to the story like it was gospel. They painted a picture of reckless youth causing chaos, turning what I'd witnessed into a mockery. Phones were confiscated, videos mysteriously erased. Anyone who tried to speak up was ignored, laughed at, or silenced. I felt like I was going insane. The nightmares didn't help. Every night, I was transported back to that cold, barren place. A void where those shadowy giants roamed freely, their forms stretching endlessly into the dark. I would wander, lost and hopeless, feeling their presence closing in on me. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my chest heaving, my hands shaking. Therapy offered no solace. My therapist, a man with kind eyes and a gentle voice, tried to rationalize it. He suggested I'd hit my head in the chaos, that my mind was filling in the gaps with hallucinations. But I knew better. This wasn't a trick of the mind. It wasn't stress or trauma. It was real. And then, just as I began to think I might be the only one who remembered the truth, I saw it. One night, as I sat in my truck, parked in a lonely lot, I caught a glimpse of something in the rearview mirror. A flicker of movement, too tall and too fluid to be human. I turned, my heart pounding, but there was nothing there. That's when I heard it. A voice. No, not a voice, my thoughts, twisted and distorted, echoing back to me. "We know you." It wasn't over. It never would be. If you've seen them, if you've felt them in your mind like I have, speak up. Don't let them erase this. Don't let them hide the truth. Because they're still here. And they're watching.